Welcome back, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast. I'm your host, Sana. And let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you're drowning in advice about how to grow your career? One day it's a book, the next it's a podcast, then a conference or a course, or maybe a reel or a post on social media. I have so many times felt that. All promising to transform your professional life. But instead of clarity, many of us walk away with overwhelm, just like I did. It raises a big question in their listeners. How do you take in all that wisdom without losing yourself in the noise, in that clutter? Well, today we are diving into this with Brian Hurtak, a Fortune 100 executive, husband, father, and author of The PlaySheet, a simple resource for overloaded professionals. Now, listeners, Brian's work takes inspiration from an unlikely place, the sidelines of a football game, where coaches rely on simple laminated play sheets to make fast, smart calls under tremendous pressure. In the same way, Brian shows us how to create our own play sheet for life and work, cutting through the chaos so we can focus, act, and actually execute when it matters most. And listeners, to be honest, I love this because it's not just about productivity, it is about peace of mind as well. So let's quickly dig in. And Brian, welcome to the show. And it's really an honor to have you here with us.
Thank you, Sana. It's an honor to be on your show, and I really appreciate the great introduction. That was wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And Brian, I mean, this is so much relatable. I mean, I have had conversations where, you can relate running your business or, innovation connected with nature, connected with insects or birds or animals, how they function. So many parallels, but I think uh, with football specifically, this is going to be so interesting, so unique and refreshing. So let's get down to it now. Brian, most professionals today are not short on information. We definitely have information overload. I personally feel it, and to be honest, it really sometimes brings anxiety within me. um, we are short on clarity. What made you realize that overwhelm, not lack of knowledge, was the real challenge?
Yeah, Sana, like everybody, as you grow in your career or you're growing in life or getting older, at a certain
Mhm.
point, you just to have cognitive load. And one day I was sitting, on my couch preparing for the work week ahead. And I just, no matter how many books I read, as you said a moment ago, podcasts I listened to, executive coaching sessions I had or paid for, mentor sessions, you name it. I found myself not applying anything that I was learning, and I didn't know why. And one day, as I was sitting on my couch, I saw something on television that I've seen thousands of times before, and it was that football coach on a sideline with a, 8 by 11 laminated sheet of paper in American football. And what I realized in the United States that every football coach at the high school, collegiate or university and professional level uses one of these. And it hit me. If every one of them use it to distill massive amounts of information so they can call the right play when the clock is ticking or the crowd noise is high or the pressure is intense, why don't I use one in my personal or professional life? And, like many people, I was growing in my career. I had more direct reports. I had more responsibilities at home. I had growing kids. They had activities. At work, I had more direct reports. So I had more meetings. I had more emails. I had more accountability. I had more pressure to keep those roles and responsibilities in my job as I was getting the executive ranks. And so I
Mhm.
was overwhelmed and overloaded and anxious really every day or every time I was trying to prepare for the work week ahead. And as I saw the coaches with the play sheet, what I did not understand as I went and researched what they're doing is the root cause of that was cognitive load. And simply put, Sana, I mean, we have too many sources of information, right?
Yeah.
We have too much of it. It becomes difficult to manage that information. Most of it is actually irrelevant. It's not important to what we really want to do. And we have everybody has a lack of time to comprehend it, understand it, and apply it. And as you get older and as you get more responsibilities, you grow in your career and you have more responsibilities in your personal life. That information overload actually, science has proven this, impacts your decision making uh, effectiveness. And so I went on a journey and studied football coaches across the country to see how they use this tool, this play sheet, to overcome information overload and execute more effectively in their day to day.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is so obvious, and especially as we grow. I mean, it's kind of a FOMO that gets created. And it gets you into such a vicious loop of, you are extracting or maybe trying to extract a load of information in there, but really almost, none of them are useful for you. Um, and I absolutely imagine that, a lot of listeners are also agreeing with me right now, agreeing with you right now, because that feeling of carrying too much in our head, it is exhausting. It is frustrating. It is exhausting. And it's really, really, at least, refreshing to hear that there is definitely a solution, a simple solution to cut through this clutter. And now we have understood the origin of this, uh, so now let's try to understand like how exactly this works. So if you can break down, Brian, how that sideline play sheet that you observed through all the coaches using during the football matches, how does that actually translate into this daily chaos of our life, especially professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, think about the coach on the sideline for 1 second, right? They have just a matter of seconds to see the situation at hand or the formation that their opponent has. And based on that situation, they have to quickly recall and call a play into the huddle, literally like 3 to 5 seconds for all that to transpire.
Yeah.
And if they brought their entire set of everything they knew, think about it. It would be overwhelming. It'd be like being at the supermarket and trying to pick from 1,000 different choices. And so what coaches did is through their work week and preparation, they have already got a set of plays, but they would game plan based on their opponent. What were the right sets of plays from their playbook? They won't bring everything. They'll evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of their that they have and what the strengths and weaknesses of their opponent, build a game plan, and then start to grab plays from their playbook down to their play sheet. And then they
Mhm.
practice those throughout the week. And then throughout the week, they kind of keep cutting plays down to this simple laminated sheet of paper, which is basically a cheat sheet for them. So when they get in that situation, maybe it's first down, maybe it's 2 minutes left in that quarter, maybe they're on their own 20-yard line. They know very quickly they can glance at their cheat sheet or play sheet, know that this is a play they've already studied, use it, call it, and execute it. And over time, the more they run that play, the better they get. Now, how does that apply to you or how can you apply it? It's pretty simple. We read books and listen to all this stuff all the time, but we don't have a framework. Most people aren't organized of how they distill all that information, put it on something that enables them to quickly recall it, and then execute it in those moments that matter. And I can go in more depth. And I also in the book talked about there's 4 chapters of the book. I didn't expect there to be 4 chapters when I did the research, but the 4 chapters are to prevent multiple sources or too much information, football coaches define their character, their culture. And that helps them minimize how much they go study or how much they put in their playbook. They also have a playbook. They have one central source or repository for all the information they have. Then they build their play sheet, and then as they run their plays, every coach over time makes iterative adjustments, kind of like what most technology companies do. They inspect and adapt and constantly iterate or adjust. So, ethos or character, playbook, play sheet, and adjustments are the four chapters of the book. But I'm happy to explain how you can apply it in either your personal or professional life here.
No, absolutely, go ahead. But before that, Brian, just a quick question. So now these coaches, they're you know, before every match, they're doing their homework, they're doing their prep as well. They're studying the opponents in there. They're trying to understand, what kind of moves these opponents, what are their strengths and weaknesses. So in our daily life, when especially in the professional, arena, um, if we are trying to create this play sheet or a cheat sheet here, who exactly should we consider our opponent? I don't know. Maybe it's a stupid question, but yeah.
Yeah. It depends on who you are and where you are. That's the first question in ethos.
Okay.
Who are you and who do you want to be? But then what I tell people is when you get to the play sheet chapter of the book, I say, what are you facing over the next 30 or 60 days? And you can do that from a personal, professional perspective. Let me give you some examples. Maybe from a professional perspective, you've got a really big deal you're trying to close. Or maybe you are a new manager for the first time and you are taking over a team and you want to build a good team. Maybe in your personal life, you're a new dad or a new mother, right? And so you're researching a bunch of parenting things. So you need to build a game plan of what are you facing. And from there, if you have a really organized playbook, you then say, okay, what are the plays that are relevant to what I am facing my personal and professional life? And you just take a couple of those categories and the plays associated with those categories, excuse me, and you put them on your play sheet. And then simply use it. I'll give you a real example for me personally. I have a 6 and an 8-year old. I've listened to a ton of parenting webinars. My kids um, sometimes have undue attention when I give one kid more attention than the other, and they start to act up and misbehave. I knew I read a lot about this. I listened to a lot of psychologists talk about this or child therapists talk about this, but I would just react to it. Well, I created a play sheet. I put some of those pieces of advice on it. And now my daughter the other day was acting up. And as my son had friends over, I had a play sheet, it's laminated, it's sitting here. My daughter was acting up. I looked at it, it said undue attention. She felt that she wasn't getting enough attention. And the play that that psychologist offered me was there, and I ran it. And I would have never instinctively ran that, right? I didn't know, but it acted as a quick, at a glance reminder. I tried it, and it worked. I couldn't believe it. Professionally, one other example. New manager, maybe I have a really critical conversation with a direct report. I'm extroverted, they're introverted. I'm working on how to have effective critical conversations. I look at my calendar, I put those plays on my play sheet for that week, and I intentionally go in that meeting with those hints and reminders on my play sheet so I can have a more effective conversation to help me help that individual on my team versus just going in there and winging it. So it's just getting organized, putting the plays I've already spent a ton of time and money learning in an organized fashion based on what I'm facing, putting them on my play sheet and then running them. And the more you run them, the more these things ultimately become better habits or more instinctive. So you can add new plays to your play sheet over time.
Hmm. That's interesting. That is really very interesting, Brian. Um, and do you think that this part of the magic is not only just the organization, but that confidence that okay, I have the play sheet available, but do I have that confidence to execute it or not? Knowing you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
Absolutely. Like, think about when you first got that piece of advice. Like, I tell this story often. Like, I've been driving down the road listening to a podcast and I hear professional advice, and it's like cold. Like I like my the joy or the excitement in me like rises, but I never would apply it, right? Well, in this case, I do put it here and I see it and I get that same energy. And then when I run the play, to your point, it gives me the confidence. It's a crutch. It helps me. But here's the deal. It may not work perfectly the first time that you run it, but that's okay. If you think about any athlete or any coach in any sport, how you run the play in week 1 or the 3rd time you run it or the 8th time you run it, you kind of iterate, and that's what adjustments are. You start to figure out how to run the play right for you. And over time, you kind of inspect and adapt that, and you start running those plays better and better. But what it gives you is intentionality of running that play in those moments. So, yes, it definitely gives you confidence, but it also helps you be intentional about running it. And then in the adjustment section, I talk about just like coaches do, they watch film at the end of every week and they do a quick
Mm,
retrospective on, can I run it differently? Can I set it differently? And then you go adjust your play and you run it better the next time.
mm, mm. Yeah, interesting. That's really interesting. I think it's not like that, we are scrambling. We are not scrambling, but we are prepared here. And I think it also changes the emotional energy going into decisions, from like chaos or panic to actually having a purpose.
Absolutely. Um, I don't think people really have a game plan when they go into a lot of those meetings. And especially as you get farther in your career, you got more things, people just show up and react, right? They're not intentional in how they respond. And so if you think about that, if a coach just did that every single day on the sideline, they probably wouldn't run that play very well. And so it does. It gives them that confidence, it gives them the discipline, and it allows them to execute more effectively. So hopefully you can secure more personal or professional wins.
Hmm. And also, now some people here might say that, Brian, okay, life and business, all these are, they are very complex to be put down in a play sheet. Um, isn't that kind of oversimplifying? I mean, many people would say that, I would like it to be more impromptu, not, following a play sheet in here. So how would you respond to that critique?
Yeah. Um, First thing to build it, I do say in the book, look, building your playbook is one of the major steps. And I asked this question. So Sana, what was the last like great piece of advice or, best podcast line or book line that you read? Do you remember, and where was it from?
Oh, I have I have a very long list of many, many podcast conversations which I have. Um, book. So there's one book. I don't exactly remember, but it was once again related to a podcast I did, which is on the art of persuasion. Like, how can you get people to say yes to you? Not from a point of manipulation, but it's more towards how to make them understand what value you are trying to share through the words that you are saying or through the actions that you are taking. So I think that was a really, really good one for me because I instantly connected and I started to actually um, take the principles and trying to execute them.
So let me ask you this now, Sana. Where is that information today?
Okay, so I have created a note of that. And also, I've tried to execute a few principles. So it's basically a set of 7 principles. So I've tried to execute 2 or 3 out of them in some of the real life scenarios in my professional life. So it's like note and then on my mind as well.
It's on. So most people, when I ask that question, sorry to quiz you there, is that it's everywhere. They have highlights in their books. They have
Yeah.
Apple Notes or notes in their phone. They have a notebook at home where they write it down. They have bookmarked web pages, but it's not in one central place. And so what coaches do is they have a playbook. Everything in their organization is in one place. So what I teach people to do is that all this great advice, all the information in your area of expertise or in your personal and professional development, get it into one place. I personally use Microsoft OneNote. I just put the chapters of all those things, whether it's sales or marketing or time management or executive communication or strategic thinking or executive presence, parenting, being a good, good with the relationships, networking, whatever the category is, I'm building those plays every time in one place. And then based on my game plan, I use Copilot. I go in there and say, give me the top 5 plays for those. It gives it to me and I pop those on my play sheet. So it's like organizing your closet the first time, you got to do it. So there's a little bit of an uplift there. But once you do it, it's really, really helpful for you being intentional. Now, let me take you back to when I was on my couch that Sunday. When I had that epiphany, I was sitting in front of my calendar, trying to organize it. My kids were running around. The toys were everywhere. That's driving the stress that I had. But now with the play sheet and that game plan of that play sheet, I looked at my calendar and I see I have the big meeting. And I see that I have plays associated with how I want to conduct that meeting. And I naturally and intentionally am going to go run that play. So look, if you don't want to do that, that's your prerogative. But I am very confident that if you are intentional and you run these plays, what you spent time and money probably reading about, learning about, getting coached on, you'll actually start to execute it. And not only will you execute it, you're going to find how it worked for you, your style, and you'll make those adjustments and it will start to become autonomous at some point. There are 3 phases of skill acquisition from a lot of studies. There's cognitive, which is just intellectualizing the skill or the task. There's the associative phase when you're making fewer mistakes. Like when you run that play the first time, you're going to make a mistake. You're not going to be perfect at it, but over time, it starts to become on autopilot for you. And so I just think the more you run it, the more you use this tool, the more efficient and effective you'll be at executing it, more crisp you'll be, and you'll start to see yourself better than the competition.
Yeah, that is very, very. I think it's very effective. That's well answered, actually, Brian. Well answered, and I think it's also a grounding reminder that success isn't the job title. I because I really loved how you not only added um, professionally who you are, but you are a husband, you are a father, and it's not just the job title, it's actually the life which is including your professional as well as the life that you are living outside of your job or your work. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have a play right now in my personal life. So I have parenting play sheet, professional play sheets. I laminate them. I put them everywhere. It's easy for me. They're I have them. With my kids, I have them downstairs. But I have one play that I've been running recently. And when I get home every day, I have this one play. It's called Be Here Now. It's really, really hard to transition from work life to home life. And with our phones and everything else and all the other things bombarding us in a digital environment today, we don't make that mental transition. Even physically, don't make that transition. We're kind of glued to the phone. But when I pull into my garage and I make that transition, that's got to be a moment where I want to be present. And so I'm trying to be very intentional about coming into the house, hugging my kids, listening to how their day was, talking to my wife, not just coming in and looking at email or looking at, still being on the phone when I'm coming in from a call. I really want to be present. And so that is something that's helping me be better. And I have a play to help remind me, just simply remind me to execute it in what I believe is a moment that really matters in my holistic life. So I think if anybody takes away trying to be intentional, whatever the framework, if the play sheet doesn't work for you, that's okay. But I'm telling you this, every coach on every sideline uses this and has for decades. And the reason is it's a simple tool that helps them distill massive amounts of information, film, roster diagnostics, player matchups, all this data in sports today. It enables them to distill it down so they can quickly recall and apply the right play in the right moment versus them just winging it and hoping what they did works.
Absolutely. Wow, that is so human in there, listeners. That's I think that's the essence here on BizBlend. It's not just about business or your professional success. It's the holistic way of approaching it. So Brian, of course, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and get hold of, how exactly the play sheet or the play works here, what will be the easiest way?
Yeah,
And of
my website is one at myplaysheet.com. You can go on there, you can purchase the book, you can set up time and consultations as well if you would like for your team or for you individually. But my book, it released in January. It's an Amazon bestseller and it is on every digital bookstore there is. Most people are buying it on Amazon.com, but you can find it on other retailers as well.
Superb. Listeners, what I'll do for you is I'll make sure to mention all the details in the show notes so that you can easily connect with Brian. I'll also get a hold of his book in there. And Brian, thank you. Thank you so much because this has been such a powerful discussion with really valuable insights for our listeners. And I think the best play, if I can summarize here, is the one we can actually run, not just the one that actually looks good on paper. So thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thank you, son. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And listeners, if you have been feeling overwhelmed by all the advice out there, maybe it's time to create your own play sheet, not to copy someone else's path, but to make your own decisions with confidence and calm. Until then, this is your host, and this has been BizBlend. Thank you.